Welcome, disc golf fans, to the Des Moines Challenge. It is here yet again. Here's the press conference, and now your defending champion, Simon Lizotte, is joining us. Simon, you got into town yesterday. Just give us the overall feeling. You took a little time off and went back home.
Yeah, I played a little local B tier last week, but besides that, Portland Open was my last event. So I went OTB, Portland Open, and now Des Moines, my 3 of my wins yesterday. So I've been in the hot seat every tournament, and I feel like things have not been going my way. So this is 3 times the charm, maybe. Hopefully this week I have a better weekend.
Well, things did go your way at the B tier you played. You played at Clement Farm up in Massachusetts. You shot great golf, and you played a B tier level course, which I think a lot of players in the tour have fond memories of playing, and maybe they missed that. Was it enjoyable for you?
100%. You know, the New England, anyone who's ever played disc golf in New England knows what the style of courses are like. There's hilly terrain, rocks, and woods. Lots of technical mid-range shot, kind of a contrast to what we play on tour. And man, I can tell you that I was walking through the fairways, through the trees, and just thinking, man, I wish we had something like this on tour, where it was just like shot shaping and grabbing your putters and mid-ranges out of the bag more often and just having fun with it. And that tournament was obviously a bit of a spontaneous idea. It kind of like popped up. Casey White told me about that it's happening, and I signed up. I was like 12th on the wait list because, you know, in New England, every tournament is full in 1 second. But I ended up getting in because the weather was looking kind of iffy, and I think a lot of people dropped, and then TD just let the rest of the wait list in. And I went into that tournament. You know, for us, playing a B tier is good practice to have some kind of like tournament vibe. Of course, it's not very serious, and we just do it for fun more than anything. But I went into that event just telling myself, I'm going to play the most boring disc golf I can possibly play, and just play each hole like on that. And of course, like that, it's mostly par 3s and some par 4s where you can go for eagles and stuff. But I told myself I'll just throw my mid to keep it in the fairway and play every hole with the most boring shot I could possibly throw. And I played a bogey-free 25 down for the 2 rounds we played. And it was like stress-free, but boring. So it was kind of like a test for myself because, you know, I don't really like the boring disc golf, like play every smartest shot and just the high percentage shots, because I want to still play for fun.
Yeah.
Bogeys aren't fun, but throwing the safe shot is also not fun. So I don't know. Maybe this weekend I'm going to go try to get that mindset from last week a bit and just play the safe shot, play the smart shot, because I feel like that's what hurt me in the last couple events where I really haven't played that well. Because when I get bored, man, bad things happen.
Well, I want to ask just more about this tournament because, again, it's not often players get to go play some of these local B tiers. The vibe is completely different, and it kind of reminds you of where we all came from. A lot of those players, that's their escape from their day-to-day life and their day-to-day jobs. And do you miss that kind of community feel going back to tournaments like that? Yeah,
well, for me it's a bit different because I grew up in Germany. So disc golf in Germany was way different than it is over here. A lot smaller and a lot less competitive than it is here. Like, I think every touring pro knows that if they go to a local league, there's some like hometown sharks on their local courses that I wouldn't be ashamed if I wouldn't have won. Mm-hmm. And if we go to a smaller event like that, it's basically there's nothing to win. Because if we win, then it's just like, of course you won, you're a touring pro. And if you don't win, everyone's going to be like, how did you not win? How do you play? Like, how do these non-touring pros beat you? But local courses is definitely a thing where you're like, the local players are always going to have a huge advantage. So I was actually pretty proud on how well I played and that I actually won. Because Massachusetts has some really good disc golfers, especially in the woods.
A question for you that kind of just popped up in your response. Why does this still happen in disc golf where local players that are rated well below the touring pros can keep up within a few strokes and sometimes beat you, whereas it seems like in golf that would never happen no matter what the course is?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's true. I feel like if you get like a local pro at their home course against a touring golf pro, I think it would be a match. Maybe. Has that been tested?
We'll just have to see, and maybe we'll do some more research. But I'll jump to another question before I ask you about this week is, Do you feel like the tour could use some more courses with pars in the 50s?
I would just like to see like one event. I don't think it should be the thing we want to go back to, but I think it's a huge part of the sport's history. You know, back in the day, every course was a par 54, and I understand why we're moving away from it, and I agree we should move on and grow and get bigger and start having bigger, better courses. But I would love to have one event a year that's old school and kind of back to the roots. I think that would be really fun.
Would you support like a speed limit, so to speak, when it comes to flight numbers at that tournament?
I don't think that's necessary. I think you can have a lot of fun with high-speed drivers in the woods too.
Okay. Well, then let's move on to this week. You're the defending champion. The question I have to ask is, do you feel like you have the same stuff, so to speak, that you had stepping onto this course last year?
Yeah, I mean, last year I had Last year was a weird event here. Let's start with that, because weather, and actually looking at the weather this weekend, Saturday's looking like we might not play right now. So it might be another weird event with weather delays or maybe even canceled rounds. So I'm preparing for that. But being the defending champion 3 tournaments in a row is weird. Like, I've never had that before. And I hope by now, well, I went OTB Open, I finished like 50-something, and then Portland Open 18th. So if I keep that trend going, I think first is next. Yeah, I mean, this course is awesome, and the vibes were great last year, so all I can do is take my momentum from my beat here last week and just play the safe shots. That's what I'm going to try to do.
There's a few changes made out here, aesthetically and course-wise. Players seem to be really enjoying how this course has kind of evolved over the years. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I haven't played it yet. I'm going to go to my round right after this. But from what I've seen and what I've heard, everyone's happy. It looks nice with the tall grass. I think that's a great touch.
Have to agree. Last question I have for you really is there added expectation or added pressure for you coming into events like this after all that happened last year?
Well, I got the huge pressure off my back, even though I didn't really feel that much pressure in Nashville, because I got my win with the new sponsor. And I mean, I listen to a lot of disc golf podcasts, which may or may not be a great idea for me to do. And I hear when people talk, like, is Simon going to win another tournament this year? And a lot of people were not thinking that I could. So I already did that, so that was great. But ever since that, I really have not backed it up. And I wouldn't call it that it's like pressure on me that I need to, but I want to. So I don't know. Last year was insane. I can't even try to explain on how it worked or why it happened. But I just got to keep trying. That's all you can do.
Fantastic. Well, good luck this week, Simon. We'll see you out there.
Good luck. 108.
Welcome back, everybody. We have your defending champion, Kristin Tattar, who seems like defending champion of many events this year. Kristin, you come back to Pickard. You had a great experience here last year. Talk about how you're feeling on this course now.
I'm very happy to be back. It's my third time here, and I've always loved this park. It's one of my favorite courses easily. I think it's like a great mixture of wooded holes and then open holes, and I like the elevation change, and everything is very good about this course, and I love the changes here. Mm-hmm. They've worked so hard, I can see it, so I'm just happy to be here.
You played last year on an injury, everybody knows that.
Yeah. Is
your play style now and the decisions you make on this course that much different than how you attacked the course last year?
Not really. But I feel like I have more options, and I felt the same way last week. So I was like eager to like try them out, and in some ways it was like messing with me, I feel like. So last year it was very easy. I only had this one shot I could rely on that wasn't really hurting, and I threw backhands when it was necessary. But now I feel like, oh my gosh, I can do that, or like, yeah, it's a bit different.
Well, I just as a commentator, I noticed that some players with big skill sets have these chooser's paradox moments where they don't know what to do, and like you said, sometimes it can mess with your decision making. I've noticed when I commentate on you now, I almost get bored watching you play because of how disciplined you are in the shots that you choose. Is that because that's just the skill set you've chosen to own in, or can you throw all sorts of technical shots if you need to?
Well, I believe I can. I mean, I try them out during practice, but I guess, I don't know, it's all about the score for me when it comes to competition. And I just want to throw the highest percentage shots, what like brings me the win most likely, you know.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask, because I know how much you just truly love this game and how much you love throwing. Disc is one thing, golf is a completely different thing. Golf, like you said, is point A to point B, and the flying disc has so many capabilities. Do you find yourself being bored just throwing that flat, consistent shot over and over again?
Not really. If I execute the way I want, then I'm not bored, because that's my intention to do that. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's fun to like throw fun shots, but I don't mind also like playing boring golf, and I understand it could be boring to watch. But I mean, I feel like this has gotten me so far. So if it's working for me, there's nothing to fix really.
Well, and I guess I say that with no like offense taken whatsoever. I say that because it's impressive to play the game with such simplicity, because you have so many players. I think Hailey King, for example, is a player that has so much technicality, so much power on both sides of the disc, and she's mentioned that decision making has been a challenging thing for her.
For sure.
Is that something that you've had to refine over the years, or has that come naturally to you in how you approach the game?
I think last year really helped because of the injury. But I also, like, some years ago, I felt like I had this need to prove that I can throw this kind of shot or that kind of shot. But now I don't really care. Like, people can come up to me and say, oh my gosh, you play so boring golf, and it doesn't really affect me, because I know that this is going to get me a better spot in the competition.
Do you feel like the course design should force players to throw more technical lines?
I wouldn't mind. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you.
Well, so I just wanted to know your take on that, but I heard something recently, an interview that you did, kind of a longer form interview, and you talked very briefly about ego and dissolving the ego, which is something that athletes in general, I think, battle their entire lives.
Yeah.
You spoke about it so elegantly, and it makes me wonder, what type of work have you done tangibly to achieve this mindset and actually be able to practice the mindset in regards to the ego?
I think for me, it was just reaching to a point where I sort of like surrendered to the universe, so to speak, because I was having so much trouble with like sleeping and all sorts of stuff, and I couldn't really go through it. And I think just putting a lot of trust into life and world, and not identifying everything around me helped me a lot. So yeah.
And you say all these things as like intrinsic journeys, but was there any catalyst, individual or catalyst, maybe a book or something that you heard that changed the way that you think about things? And has the ego been a big struggle for you in the past as an athlete?
I mean, I think everybody has problems with their egos. Otherwise, the world would be a very good place. But we try to like victimize ourselves a lot, and like, oh my gosh, if they would change, then I would be in a much happier place, and so on. And I realized that the only person that I can change is me. So everything that I see in the world reflects my views of the world. So if I change myself, I'm going to see the world differently. And probably everybody else would start to interact with me differently. And that happened. But I mean, the catalyst probably was the really big sleeping issues, and I couldn't really put my finger on what was going on, and it started from there.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I think a lot of disc golfers are always on that personal journey, so I think always words like that are nice to hear. I guess going into this week, like you said, weather could be a problem tomorrow. Do you have any sort of preparations prepared for Saturday, or does that not matter to you right now? Is Friday just the only thing you're worried about?
No, yeah, I'm not worried about it. When it comes, then it comes. I'll figure it out for sure. I feel like I've been in a lot of situations before, similar situations, so I'm sure I'll figure it out and try to just stick to the boring golf.
Well, Kristin, thank you so much. We'll see you out there on the course.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after a quick break. Welcome back. We have Juliana Korver. Juliana, you've helped out with Pickard Park in the past. I believe you helped design the course here. You have a lot of history in Iowa. And for those getting into disc golf for the first time, what does Iowa disc golf mean to you?
Oh, it is, well, it's because of Iowa Disc Golf that I became a disc golfer, that I fell in love with the sport, and that I'm where I am today. So it feels really rewarding to come back home and to see just how strong the community is, especially around this course that I had a part in putting in.
Tell the story of Pickard Park. I think we're probably just going to have you tell it every year at this point. I think it's a great story, and I think it's great to know the history of where we're playing.
After grad school at Iowa State, moved here, and I was teaching for the Division of Adult Learning at Simpson College, and we lived less than a mile from this park, and there was no disc golf in the area. And I don't remember how the contact was made, but made contact with a local church that had some money that they wanted to put into youth activities, and talked them into this being a great activity for their youth group, and they were all for it. And so we then went through the process of getting permission to use the park, and eventually when that came through, I designed it. We weren't able to use the entire layout. For example, where like 13, 14, 15, where those holes are, that was initially going to be long-term goal, going to be a water feature for this park. And so I was restricted from that, and that's all new, and I love that addition to the park. When the Worlds was going to be here in the early 2000s, John Houck came and did a redesign with Justin McLuhan, and they were able to expand over there, and it's been a fantastic addition.
When you first walked this property, was championship disc golf instantly in your mind?
I don't know that I knew what championship disc golf was back then. I knew that this land would be conducive to a beautiful course. Everything that you see that is mowed, other than like where the buildings are, it was all prairie. So it was we literally cut it out of the prairie and then tried to utilize as much of the woods as we could. And you know, I mean, you're a disc golfer. Every time you go buy a piece of property, if it looks conducive to a course, I mean, you just dream about what that course might be. And I was the same way. And this, it was pretty easy to see that there could be a very nice course here.
Well, there was championship disc golf here years later. There was a big, I believe, world championship right here at Pickard Park, and you were there. And I want to know, how far ahead of the times was Pickard Park when it was used for that championship?
It's a good question. I mean, it was a hard course when it went in the ground. It's harder now, of course, but so is the technology. The technology has increased enough that that's needed. I don't know if it was because this course was slightly geographically isolated from the Des Moines group, being, you know, we're 20 miles south of Des Moines, or if it was because of all the tall grass, and if you lost your Frisbee in the tall grass, it was hard to get it back. But it took a while before there was traction here, and there were a lot of people playing, and I was actually already on the road before this became even a hint of what it would in the future, meaning the people coming down to play it and really falling in love with it and then making it their own.
I have a question for you, maybe jumping forward. You took some time away after your initial stint playing disc golf professionally to go back in time almost and commit to freestyle, which is a smaller community these days, and other disc disciplines. And now coming back onto the tour after having some success in the freestyle world, were there any life lessons or things you learned about yourself that you carried into this new, I guess, second wave of your disc golf touring?
Well, one thing that I'm so excited about is a lot of the growth of freestyle is mostly in Europe. The younger kids are playing there, and so many of them are getting into disc golf now, and I just love the crossover. But back to your question, lessons that I might have taken away. Well, there's no money in freestyle, with slight exceptions here and there, but for the most part, there's no money. And you know, I traveled to Israel, to Prague, to Germany, all over the place to play just for the love of the game. So doing something for the love of the game is a great lesson and can be utilized in many aspects.
Well, thank you for that. And I think the other things that have started long ago that disc golf kind of also came from are important. And how important do you believe for disc golfers out there that have never even heard of the other disc disciplines, how important is it to know the history of where we came from and applying it to how you see disc golf today?
Especially given the fact that some of the other disciplines are starting to die out. I think it's very important because I don't want them to go away.
Yeah.
DDC, and I don't think freestyle is going anywhere. It's diminished in the States, but actually there's a big contingency down at Duke College, or Duke University now that's starting, so maybe it's revitalizing. But you know, if you love throwing a frisbee, you're going to love throwing a frisbee in these other disciplines.
Yeah.
And maybe you can't make a living doing it, but boy, you can have a great time. And perhaps that's where some of today's younger disc golfers will retire to and take up some of these other activities when they're finished.
We can only hope. And I will say we're in the halfway point of the season. We're in the Midwest again. It's hot. It's muggy. We're all used to it at this point, but for you, how are you? How are you feeling overall? I know you said this might be kind of a victory lap season for you.
Well, I was going to play practice round this morning, and my hip is hurting, my back is hurting a little bit, so I took today off. I definitely prioritize rest more than I used to, and it's not so much whether my arm gets tired. That's not the issue. It's just making sure the rest of my body can keep up with this. And yeah, the heat is harder for me than it was 25 years ago. Don't love that part of it, but I'm doing fine.
Your golf has been fantastic. You've been playing some fantastic disc golf, and it's been such a treat to watch. I mean, seeing you at Portland on the lead card was, I think, a treat for many people, seeing your style of play. I guess, is there anything clicking for you after all these years that still you're getting better at?
I was able to stay out of my own way in Portland. I was able to not really think about the outcome and just play the next shot. You know, I don't think my game was better that event than my execution was better. But it's not like my skills are better now than they were. I just have a hard time executing and not taking things too seriously. And at this point in my life, in my career, from an outside perspective, it might seem like that should be the easiest thing in the world to do, but it's not.
Yeah, well, I understand that. I think a lot of disc golfers out there understand that, and I have one last question for you before I let you go today. You recommended me a book a little while ago called The Phenomenon by Rick Ankiel, who is a pitcher in the major leagues. And have you since completed the book, and have you pulled any lessons that maybe you can share with any amateur players struggling with what he did?
Sure. So this is a pitcher who got the yips, and his struggle to try to get over them and to get back to the major leagues after falling back down. And I've read a bunch of books in similar areas, and what was remarkable about this one, it was basically just how to accept it. It's like, this is never going to go away. This is something that's always going to be part of me, and I can't just ignore it. I have to work through it. And I think that was probably what was valuable to me, is that there's no magic pill. You can't hide from it, and just accept it. You know, sometimes I miss really short putts. So be it.
Same. Same. Well, Juliana, we can't wait to see you out there this week. You're back home in Iowa, so thank you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after a quick break. Welcome back. We are joined here now by runner-up of last year's DMC, Robert Burridge. Robert, it was chaos last year, and it kind of cemented you on the radar for a lot of people. Can you reflect back on how that felt and just being able to finally show your skills off?
Last year was definitely a nice little surprise even for me coming out here and doing what I did. The playoff with Simon was electric all the way through. It was the first and pretty much the only major Elite Series, Silver Series, or even major at this point where I felt like my game was fully there. And so it was very satisfying to see it all come together for at least one tournament in last year when I wasn't even on tour. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know, something about this place just feels great to me.
Talk about the course. Talk about the course for players or people watching that have not seen Pickard Park yet.
Pickard Park is probably my favorite course on tour, despite what happened last year. It was, even practicing it last year, I remember thinking this is one of the better courses that we played just because of the mix of shots. It's not just a straight hyzer every shot. You actually need to pick your landing zones. You need to throw different shots. You need to pick where the disc lands, how the disc lands, speed of the disc. It's just very technical, and it's why I felt I was able to do so well, because I knew the miss more than just knowing how to play the hole perfectly. So if I did miss, I'd be taking par. Took, I think, one single bogey around last year, which I always sort of give myself one sort of let this hole be, we'll move on per round. But just knowing the miss is so important on this course.
You are now full-time professional player, and Lone Star picked you up, helped you out, got you out here. You're out of school now.
Yes.
How has the transition been for you, and how have you been enjoying it?
I've been really enjoying it. This is probably better than I expected, I guess, is a good way to put it. I took a week off a couple weeks ago for Zootown. Congrats to Evan, by the way. I remember playing with him in the amateurs. It's just been so much fun traveling around the country, seeing places I wouldn't if I was either still in school or at a job. Just being able to move around, see places, make friends on the tour, really be a part of this community this year is so gratifying, so awesome.
How many years are you giving yourself? Some players, they have to keep, quote-unquote, making it for them to stay on the road. They don't really know what they're doing. They're just along for the ride. What about you? Do you have pretty aggressive goals for yourself?
I do. I'm going to reevaluate what I'm going to do depending on, if I get some nagging injuries, if some elbow pain comes back, which I haven't had in a while, thankfully. If, something happens with my knee, if something happens with my hip, just having the background I do, going to college, getting a degree, having plans outside, not necessarily that I'm planning on going to, cemented, I'm going to do this at some point, but just to have a backup just in case things sort of go off the rails is so important to me. And so I'm going to reevaluate based on either injuries or probably after 2-3 years on tour, I'll reevaluate, is this where I want to be? What do I want to do with the rest of my life? Because I am only 21 and I have a long time ahead of me.
Well, a question for you. I've spoken to Greg Barsby in detail about his life touring, and he had been on the road 15 years or so when I was speaking to him, and he had mentioned that he had gone through deep burnout. He said 8 times in specific, and he worked through it and stayed out here on the road. How much respect do you have for players like Greg that kind of laid out the foundation for all you guys?
I have deep respect, because even back then for Greg, for say Paul when he was starting, for Philo back, I think even Nico back in the day, it wasn't as big as it is now. It's so much easier now to be on the road because of the amount of money, the amount of sponsorships that come into this. But previously it was almost all self-made. You had to be self-supportive. You didn't have those big sponsors. You didn't have those big contracts. And so I just have a deep respect for everything they did, everything they're doing, and seeing them out on the course. Even now, winning, I think Greg won Masters Cup earlier this year. I didn't play it, but I was out there, and it was it's just so much fun to watch them and still see them beating the next generation coming up.
It's definitely impressive. I share the same sentiment. Actually, here's AJ Risley now for a couple questions as well.
Robert. Hey, Robert. How you doing?
Pretty good. How about you?
Good. Okay, so I want to zoom back into you and this weekend in particular. You're here on our list of interviewees because you're the 2022 runner-up.
Yes.
When you hear that phrase, or when you think about that phrase in your mind, I'm curious, where does your mind go to? Does it go to expectations or confidence?
Definitely a little bit of both. Expectations come with that. With what happened last year, reflecting back, even if I didn't know it at the time, I was winning the tournament at some point during the final round, knowing that, I had a chance and I didn't necessarily take control of it despite, not knowing the score at the time. But expectations out here, I think I play this course really well. Even this year, I feel like it suits my game really well, and so if I don't attack it, if I don't get the birdies, I feel let down by myself. But at the same time, I know that any course at any moment can just not be your friend. And so I'm really just playing as best I can, and if I end up where I was last year, great. If I end up barely making cash or not cashing, I have next week. There's so much time involved. We have so many more events this year, and so if one week doesn't go your way, it's about moving on and getting better as a player and as a person and just moving on to that next event.
Wow. So is that an attitude or mindset or a reaction that you've always had, or something that you learned while you're out here on the tour, the thought of having next week?
It's definitely something I've gotten better at the longer I've been on tour. So last year I had a little summer stretch where I hit Deglow, Ledgestone, Des Moines, Worlds, hit GMC at the end of the year. That was a nice little stretch where I was playing extremely aggressive because I was like, I'm only on this for a little bit. But I think I missed the cut at Ledgestone, and I immediately was like, all right, that's fine. I have next week, because I was on that grind of like, I'm not there, I'll get it next week. That'll be fine. Oh, I didn't make that, I'll get it later in the year when I go to GMC. It was just that everyone's so good now, you don't know how you're going to stack up at any moment in time.
Yeah, I hear that. Well, you're one of those players now, so thank you for being here.
Of course.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back. We're joined here by previous week's champion at the DDO, Hailey King. Hailey, the dust is settled. You got your win yet again at the DDO. You're here in Des Moines. Where's your head at now?
Oh, I'm here to have fun. I know this course is very scoreable and it's long, but it's going to be fun, and that's all I'm hoping for.
You said it's long. I know that you've really enjoyed throwing putters and mid-ranges. That's something that you really enjoy. How do the distance drivers stack up in regards to what you enjoy throwing?
Now that my form's changed a little bit and I'm starting to figure it out, I'm really starting to enjoy the longer drives. Yeah.
Can you talk about what has changed for you throwing the distance drivers? At nose angle, speed, what is it?
Yeah, a lot of it is speed and nose angle. I was having the hardest time throwing it flat or even nose down, and now I can do that. But now I'm in better shape. I'm also having a lot more spin on the disc. So yeah.
Can you talk about that? I mean, you've been talking all season like you've committed to being a pro athlete on the physical side as well. I think you and I both started playing disc golf as kids. You never think about working out for the game or anything like that. You just throw. How has that transition been, and how do you feel about where you're at now?
I mean, the transition from like off the course to on the course has been absolutely amazing. Like I sometimes when I'm lifting, I just like to go to my, like when I'm dying, basically, right? Like I want to go to where I can like knock it up again. So for me, that helps a lot when I'm on the course, because with this heat, it really it slowly tears you away throughout the weekend. And I think specifically lifting weights, like especially that way, it kind of just, it gets you ready to fight at your lowest amount of energy and stuff like that.
You've told me in previous years that just being on the road and like trying to keep up with practice, keep up with fitness, keep up with like following a consistent nutrition plan is so hard. All of us know that have played this game professionally. Do you feel like you're at a place where you're more proud of how you conduct yourself on the road?
Extremely. And I think going home and just forcing myself to go home is a big part of that.
So how often are you flying back? Is it almost every week that you're not back to back?
No. I try to do like 3 or 4 week stretches, so then I can go home for 2 to 3 weeks, if not like a month or so. But yeah, it's really, I'm not playing anything more than 4 events in a row. That's it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, clearly you've done this long enough. Now you're a veteran, even though you're only 21 years old. I do need to ask about last week. You said something about your decision-making being better than it's ever been on the course. Obviously, people look at your skill set, your forehand, backhand, you have the touch, power, whatever. I've noticed the same thing, that your decision-making last week looked phenomenal. And can you elaborate more on that?
Well, thank you. I mean, like what you said, I kind of have every shot. So going up to a 300-foot approach shot, it's like, well, what do? I can do both, right? So it's the fact that instead of just doing what I'm confident with, I'm now like looking at the outside factors, and it's like, okay, confidence goes this far, but like if there's 20 feet OB or OB within 20 feet, like I'm not going to throw that shot because it's going to there's a chance it can end up bad. So let's just go with the smart play. And yeah.
When you were a kid, like coming up in the game, starting to play open for the first time, and you had all this talent, what did decision making look like for you then, as opposed to now?
I was just having fun. I wanted to do stuff that made me happy to be out here. Like, I'm a professional disc golfer. I feel like if I don't do what makes me happy, why am I out here, right? So I want to be trying my hardest every day, and I want to be doing the best I can.
You know, you mentioned you have every shot. I have to agree with that. I mean, forehand, backhand, forehand, power. Do you feel like you actually, to win a Disc Golf Pro Tour event, have to have every shot?
I think currently no, but I do think within probably 2 years you're going to have every single shot. And you see it on MPO, like the Parker.
Mm-hmm.
Parker. He has both shots just like that too. Mm-hmm. So, and that's why he took down Kelvin, in my opinion, is because he had both shots. And in my opinion, Kelvin does obviously have both shots, but he leans more on the backhand, and we can see that. And I do think that plays into it, yeah.
So I guess I have a question just about how you like courses to be laid out. Some people like courses that kind of force you to throw a specific tee shot. Some players like that there's multiple options. Do you fall somewhere in between? What style of hole do you enjoy?
Honestly, I don't really care. I just like being out here and throwing.
How do you feel this week?
I feel pretty good, yeah.
So game plan-wise, you mentioned you were shooting 12 to 13 unders in practice at DDO. How do these weeks look?
Well, I played my first practice round today, and I didn't count score, but I had a lot of birdie opportunities, and I think I didn't look at pars, but there was potentially an eagle opportunity, I think. So, feeling pretty good. Course looks good. I like the changes compared to last year. And yeah, I think it's going to be a good weekend.
Well, thank you for that, and here's AJ Risley for a couple questions as well.
Hi, Hailey. You mentioned last week after your win that it was your first win with your caddy. What's his name?
Ryan Hauser.
Ryan Hauser. This is his first full-time season caddying for you?
Yeah, yep.
What do you think is the biggest thing that he brings to the table when it comes to your game and influencing your game?
He just lets me think what I want to think, and he doesn't get in the way of that. He doesn't force anything, which for me is very important. So, yeah.
So on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how much he's like giving you advice in the moment, it's more so in 3 to 0? Gotcha.
I would say it's pretty close to 0, yeah.
Now, decisions are a big thing on the course, and so is self-talk. Have you felt a difference in your self-talk having Ryan there to assist you?
I mean, yes, but no, because he's allowing me to get it out in a healthy way. Like, if I'm mad, I can yell at him. Like, I can complain to him, and he's just going to sit there and he's going to take it, right?
Sure.
He's not going to sit there and he's not going to be, it's okay, it's just a bogey, everything's okay. He's going to just let me get it out and deal with it. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, because if you let those thoughts fester, it's going to eventually hurt your score.
Yeah.
Is that something? I mean, you're one of, not the only player, not really one of the few, but still, I think having a caddy is, a little bit in the minority. Is that something you would suggest to all players?
I personally think every player should have a caddy. We shouldn't be carrying our bags. We're out here for like 4 hours a day, and I mean, at this point, we're 85-degree weather, so a lot of people are getting way tired, and they're not in their prime where they should be. So I think everybody should have a caddy. It should just be who you are as a person. You need a caddy that matches that. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you find Ryan? How did you find that he was like right for your game?
Well, I actually met him, I think, in 2019 when I was touring with Cameron Messerschmidt, and I mean, his kid's extremely good at disc golf. One time he just offered, hey, I'm going to be in this area. Do you want me to caddy for you? I'm like, yeah, let's get in a practice round first so we can test it out, not just straight in a tournament. That's very important, right? We tested it out, and I was like, okay, this is pretty good, right? Like, I like this. And then he showed up for the next one and the next one, and now we're just like, okay, this is perfect. So
that's awesome. That's a great story. Perfect blend of serendipity and experimentation. Thank you, Hailey. Good luck this week. We'll be right back after a few messages.
Welcome back. We are now joined by the man that has been the talk of the tour for the past couple of weeks at this point, Parker Welck. Parker, the dust may be settling for you. How has it been since this incredible victory at the DDO?
It's been really cool. I've kind of just been hanging out with my friends, just keeping it low-key, celebrating this whole time, and it's been just a ton of fun celebrating and just having fun.
In regards to people reaching out to you, maybe to do media or just people reaching out, sending messages of congratulations? Has it been a bit chaotic?
Oh, it's been super chaotic. I've never had this many messages in my entire life. I've done a few podcasts, a few practice rounds. It's been really fun.
Have you enjoyed being in the spotlight? Is that something that you were hoping for when you started going on tour?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting to win this year, but it happened, and I'm happy it did because I really like this feeling. I really do.
I guess the question for me is, why weren't you expecting to win this year? People saw your skill on display this week and were so impressed. Did you really go into this tournament not thinking you could win?
Well, it's weird because the guys I'm playing against, they're the guys I look up to. They're my heroes kind of growing up,
Yeah.
and to be playing with them in a tournament and competing with them and almost beating them, it's a weird feeling, but I never really thought that could happen, but now I know that it can.
Is it a weird wall to have to jump over when you are such a fan of the sport on that level, and now you have to beat them and accept that they're not as shiny as they once were?
No, it's cool because I really haven't beat too many of those top 10 players this year, and I think it's just really amazing how nice they are, and I never got to experience playing with too many of them before, so it's fun.
When you first decided to come out on the tour full time, what was that life transition like, and when did you make that firm decision?
It was kind of a bummer leaving, but I got the opportunity to have a silver tour pass, so I got to pick 4 Elite Series events and all the silver events, so I went out and we're going to do those, and it was a total bummer leaving my wife. It was hard for the first couple of weeks, and we were FaceTiming every day, but we became stronger and stronger throughout just the whole time of it.
Well, I guess that's partially why I asked this. I mean, Ben Calloway is another story who has a wife and kid at home when he decided to go on tour. And how long was the discussion process between you and your wife to make this happen?
Not too long. She knows that it's my dream, and she has dreams as well. So if she gets into PA school, I think she'll do her own thing, and I'm gonna have to let her go, which is gonna be kind of a bummer for me. But if she doesn't get into PA school, we're gonna be doing it together, and it's gonna be amazing next year.
Well, I know Kristin Tattar had said that when she comes over to the States and leaves her family, she feels like it's almost easier to focus single-mindedly on the task at hand. Do you feel like it's the same thing for you being away from your family?
No, as you guys saw last week with my mom on the bag, it's a lot more fun when I have someone that I know that close to me on the bag.
Talk about growing up in a Frisbee family. It looks like your mom and dad both played disc golf. I think your dad had joined the PDGA in '97, I believe, so he'd been playing a long time as well. What was that like growing up in that kind of family? Oh,
it was cool. I think every member of my family is a state champion in Hawaii. My brother, Austin, my mom, Karen, and my dad, Steve. My dad's like an 8-time state champion or something like that. It's cool having just Frisbees around the house and baskets in our yard, and we lived kind of on a golf course, so I could throw at some palm trees out there, and it was really nice. It's always giving me something to do.
You grow up in a family where something is so normal, and then maybe you go to school and it's not so normal. Were you one of the only kids growing up that knew about disc golf, or did you have friends that were also your age?
Well, everyone knew that we were the disc golf family. If they wanted to play disc golf, they were texting me, they were texting my dad, they were texting my brother. They wanted to come with us, and it's always a great time, especially when you're going up to some place like Haleakala on the side of a volcano to play disc golf with just a beautiful view, and that's something that everyone wanted to do.
You have mentioned in the past that you were a surfer, and you still do surf. And I feel like when I meet people who surf, it's like this romantic connection with the sport. And they feel like it's a lifestyle and mindset. Do you feel like you've transferred any mindset or any life lessons into the sport of disc golf from surfing?
Yeah, well, for me, surfing was just like another hobby. I never really thought of it as like a lifestyle too much, because I did pretty much all sports, mostly board sports growing up, so they were all pretty much the same to me. And transitioning into disc golf, it was kind of weird at first, but because disc golf wasn't really cool at the time, especially with all like my friends saying like, man, you're gonna go play disc golf instead of surfing with us. But it worked out for the better, and I'm happy that I picked up disc golf playing that much.
Well, let's zoom in. I mean, you just had a phenomenal week last week, and you've said it's life-changing for you. What clicked? Well, I mean, you've showcased incredible power on the backhand and forehand. Your putt looks fantastic. You can clearly spring over trees with karate kick. Incredible flexibility there. Talk talk about what happened this week. Was it just something that clicked in your game, or did everything just happen to come together?
Yeah, I mean, in order to win, everything has to be working. These past few events, it's always been one thing that's kind of just been missing in my game. And you'll see, like, if you watch any winner, everything's going right. They're getting lucky breaks. Pretty much everything's just going right. And if one thing's going wrong, you're not going to win. And everything was going right for me this week, and a little bit of luck in there, and came out on top.
Is that where the MPO division is now? I mean, everyone likes to equate it to when Tiger Woods was dominating golf, and then all of a sudden he stopped and more players started winning. Do you feel like it's anybody's week every week?
I think that in the game of golf that is the case, but there are players that are more consistent, and I think that's kind of where the rating system comes into play. And you know, someone like Calvin, he's going to be up there on top every single week for the most part. But someone like me, I can win. I have the skills to win, but I'm probably not going to be up there every single week.
Talk about Pickard Park that you're playing this week. Talk about what it takes to win here, and do you feel like you can go back to back?
Yeah, I mean, it would be crazy to go back to back. I don't know if that's even possible, but I mean, anything is possible. I've kind of been taking it easy on my arm and kind of just practicing the up shots here and learning where to land. A lot of the shots are blind shots, so I've mostly been focusing on like putting and a little bit of up shots.
Fantastic. Well, Parker, thank you so much. I think there's a lot of people pulling for you to go back to back this week, so we'll see you out there.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back in just a few. Welcome back. We're joined here by Paige Pierce. Paige, you've talked about all season how life outside of disc golf, on the course at least, has been fantastic for you. And you got to do more stuff off the disc golf course with disc golf. Talk to us about Bonnaroo. What happened there?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, we went last year and we got a message from the marketing director and said, you know, hey, I saw what you guys did last year. Would you want to come back this year? I looked at the schedule. I saw it was during DDO. I called Bob first and foremost and was like, hey, is it okay if I skip DDO? This is the plan. I'm going to be on a stage going disc golf outside of the tournament. Everyone that's watching this is an avid disc golfer, but my mission right now is to bring new people into the game. I know, you know, Hailey and Holland and Ella, they're going to put on a show for you guys at DDO, but I'm trying to bring disc golf to the masses. Sorry about that. Oopsie. Sorry. And so Bob was like, yeah, sounds great. We'll even come. We'll give away free Fierces, free Ultra Stars. And, it was really cool to not only to do that, but to have my bosses there and to see what type of environments are out there that we haven't tapped into yet, and that the people are excited and ready for disc golf. And it was like an interactive, we did like a demo where, the very first, I'm like, hi, I'm Paige Pierce, blah, blah, blah. Raise your hand if you've never played disc golf before, or you've played like 2 or less times. And we had like a lot of people raise their hands. So I took those people off to the side and taught them how to play, while the people that already knew how to play, they were already there with passions and nukes and all that. They played like putting relay games, Ring of Fire, all that. And I taught the new people. And then we came together at the end, and it was just like a whole big disc golf community. And that's what I'm going for. And it was so awesome. And also the week before, I did a skateboarding, the New Balance. I'm not really in the skateboarding scene, but now I feel like I am. But the Pensacola just opened a new skateboard park. It's $2 million skateboard park, and the entire professional New Balance team came to do a demo. And I got to set up a disc golf booth there as well. Gave discs to a bunch of new kids and a bunch of new players. I had baskets so people could putt while they were hanging. And just really, like, especially that one, it put it into perspective. Like, for me, I'm enjoying growing the sport, but especially that skateboarding one, I was like, wow, when I mess up, worst case scenario, I lose my putter or I take a triple bogey. For them, when they mess up, they're breaking their leg, they're breaking their back. And like, it put it into perspective for me. Like, I need to chill out and just stop having fear and just make the putt. And if you miss the putt, it's no problem. Like, you're not going to break your back. You're going to be able to come out the weekend after and try to make that putt. So I think it was really good for me to kind of just like take a step back from the competition side of things and just to see like the beauty of life and like how lucky we are to be on a disc golf pro tour. Like, there's freaking lights and cameras and drones following us around playing disc golf. It's a beautiful world that we live in, and like sometimes you take it for granted, but stepping away for a second really put it back in perspective.
Well, talk to me about all these new people that came specifically to learn disc golf from you. Were you nervous? And then also, did you watch some people fall in love for the first time with the game?
Definitely. I definitely was nervous. I was like, festivals, people go there to let loose and to let the music move them, and not necessarily to be, coached. But if it's a new player, I don't want to just hand them a disc and not teach them what to do with it. So that's why I had that idea. Like, if you've never played before, you're with me for the next 10 minutes and then we're going to have a good time. But I think once I got there, all the nerves like dissipated, because there was already 100+ people there, like ready to, hey, should we help you set up this tent? Let's get the table out. You need the tablecloth. And it's just like disc golf. It's like you open a new course and you got 50 volunteers there ready to do a work day for free, and it's like, that's the community that I'm a part of and I've been born into, and that I'm so happy to show exists to those new people. I definitely saw people fall in love for the first time, and like that realization of like, oh, when my upper body matches my lower body, oh, now I'm getting the timing right. And like, you see it click in their head and they're like, huh, okay. So it's really cool feeling. Like, I love teaching beginners, because to go from here to here is very easy.
I have to ask, how did it go compared to expectations? And then with that, how did Bonnaroo feel about it? And then did you ever line up any opportunities for other festivals?
Yeah. So as far as Discraft was concerned, they ran 500 Fierces, and they were like, yeah, we'll give away 100, 200 during the demo. And then, throughout the rest of the weekend, we'll just kind of give them away. And we ran out within, like, our demo was an hour slotted, and we ran out within 10 minutes, and there was more and more and more and more people coming. So I think we had about 1,000 people come throughout. Some of them came and left early. Some of them like stayed the whole time and then some. But we had like well over 1,000 people that were like on site, ready to learn about disc golf or grab a disc, get a disc in their hand. And so as far as Discraft was involved, they were like, wow, we should have ran a lot more discs. And then as far as Bonnaroo was concerned, they were like, I just thought like 50 people were going to come over here. And so to see like over 1,000, they were like, he stayed the entire time, the marketing director, the entire hour he stayed there. And he was just, once we finished, I walked over to him and he was like, looks like we need a bigger plan for next year. And so, yeah, I've already had an email meeting with him since then. And actually, my agent has a meeting with Halloween planned as well. So, yeah, we kind of have like a pamphlet of what we can do with limited space now. And I think this is just the beginning. So it's very exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank
I can
you.
see the joy just beaming off of you right now, which is awesome always, how
Yeah.
passionate you are about this game and sharing it with people. Now you have to zoom in this week
Yes.
and be single-minded.
Yes.
Is that going to be easy coming off of that high of sharing it with so many people, or is it difficult to kind of come back to earth, so to speak?
Yeah, so it's much different, you know, like I just talked about, it's like all for the fun and the joy, but here it's competition. It's, hey, try not to get mad if you miss a putt. You know, it's like, man, I really wish I could get that stroke back, but you can't. So trying to alleviate the negative energy. And I think with coming off of a festival where everybody is so encouraging and supportive and friendly, I think that is going to help. Also, the fact that I walked over 150,000 steps. I played 2 rounds yesterday, which I haven't done in a long time on a tour course. You know, playing a par 54 course twice in a day is no big deal, but playing Pickard Park twice in a day when it's 90 degrees in the summer solstice, I wouldn't have been ready for that if it wasn't for Bonnaroo. So I feel like I was excited to be out here. The course looks absolutely insane. Like, just like to specify it down to one hole, hole 17, like monetarily, I bet they put $50,000 into that one hole, like the bridges and the tee pad and the mulch, and like, wow, that is insane. Round of applause for sure to the Des Moines crew. And yeah, just like the contrast between the fairway and the rough, like how tall the rough is and how manicured the fairways look. It's just gorgeous with the rolling hills, and it's just a treat to be out here playing. And I get to play with not only my best friend Missy, but Juliana, the original course designer, and Kristin. Yeah, it's going to be a great time. And like, as much as like the competition is sometimes something that like comes and goes as far as like my objective, like sometimes I'm like, I don't really care about beating Kristin. I don't care about beating Calvin. Hi, Calvin. I don't care about who I beat. I just want to play and watch frisbees fly. I feel like I am ready this week to stop messing around and just like put down a hot score. I'm sick of messing around, you know.
Well, thank you, Paige. I'm sure the people who put you on their fantasy are excited to hear that, and we'll see you out there. We can't wait.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back. Just a few. Welcome back. Joined here by Calvin Heimburg. Calvin, just want to jump into it right away. It feels like we see you now every week at these press conferences. You're all over the media. It seems like everybody kind of wants a piece of you this year because you're playing so well. How have you been handling that? I guess fame, you could call it at this point. Has it been tough? Has it been simple?
It really hasn't been that much of anything different. I mean, I've definitely seen, the events grow a little bit, but that's not really relative to me. That's just as a whole. So there's definitely more spectators at a lot of events. But yeah, nothing else really changes. I mean, I'm coming out to all these tournaments and, you know, getting my practice in and then just trying to execute to the best of my ability. So it doesn't really change what I'm doing out here on the course.
For sure. I guess other thing that I want to ask, I mean, you've watched the game evolve over the years, like you've said, and media is a part of it. And you've mentioned a few times that you wish the media did things a little bit differently here and there. I remember back at Jonesboro, you talked about the TV timeouts, one of the things they were implementing. Talk about the media-player relationship in this game and how you've seen it evolve, and maybe the things that are done well or things ideally that you'd like to see different.
Yeah, I mean, it's constantly evolving. You know, the ability of the broadcast is constantly increasing, and they're always trying to increase the experience for the viewers back home. That doesn't necessarily always translate to something that's as enjoyable as a player, but for the most part, it's been pretty good. You know, when things aren't quite right, they typically take feedback pretty well and are able to change it and make it better for, you know, even sometimes in that event or the following week. So it's constantly evolving. It's cool. I know as a fan, it's great to have all the extra media. It's really just a matter of what certain players are comfortable with. I know you guys have done some walk and talks. It's not something that I've volunteered for because I don't think that's kind of the mindset I'm in when I'm out on the course. But you know, there's other players that are cool with it, and you know, I'm sure that's a cool experience to have on the live broadcast. So it's constantly evolving, and I'm sure it's, you know, cool to see.
Thank you for that. I appreciate hearing your opinion on this thing, because you're going to be a part of it for quite a while, it seems like. We're at the halfway point in the season. You know, we're back in the Midwest. It's hot. It's humid. And some players are starting to hit kind of that burnout stretch. I guess I want to ask you, how are you feeling at this point in the season?
I'm feeling pretty good. I don't know. There are definitely times, or there have been past seasons where I felt, you know, a little bit of that burnout coming to this part of the year, but I'm actually kind of surprised that I'm already here and back in the Midwest. It feels like it, for whatever reason, to me, it's gone quicker. I don't really feel like I've been, you know, out and touring for as long as I really have been. So I'm feeling really good. Excited to get, you know, a couple more events out here in the Midwest before I head out overseas. And then you got the home stretch. So we'll see how that's feeling, you know, coming down the end of the year. I feel like typically for me, that's where it hits hardest, is, you know, down September, October. I haven't been home since February. So like, we'll see how it hits there. But right now I'm feeling really good.
Yeah, I guess I want to talk about, you know, towards that stretch when you do hit that burnout, which is kind of inevitable for a lot of players. Like you mentioned with the silver events, you have to play a lot more of those than maybe you used to. So yeah, you're having to play a ton of disc golf tournaments. Is that something that you just have to let happen to you and let it pass over time, or is that something that you like have a very set plan to work through psychologically?
You know, I wouldn't say I have a plan. It's pretty tough to like emulate, you know, just home. And I feel like that's typically what, I mean, like, people get tired of disc golf. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't feel like I really get that tired of disc golf, because I'd even be playing disc golf when I'm back home with my friends. It's more just like, it's probably a little bit of being homesick and just like missing seeing the people, you know, that I'm used to being around. I guess at this point, tour might be what I'm more used to, but it's nice to be stationary sometimes, and it's pretty hard to emulate that when you're bouncing around week to week. So I don't know if there's any real plan. I think it's just, you know, you just have to lock down, focus, you know, and know you have that 4-month stretch of off season where you're going to be stationary, and, you know, you can recoup then.
Yeah, I want to ask you, you mentioned you really haven't been full-time touring for as long as people like Paul, Ricky, that have been doing it well over a decade.
Yeah.
At what point did this sport start feeling like a true job to you? Does it feel like a job to you now, or is it still just fun?
It's definitely a job. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things, you know, to do and things to keep up with, but it's still fun. I really do enjoy disc golf. I enjoy playing, and, you know, that's part of the reason why, I mean, I still do it. So, but yeah, I'd be wrong if I said it didn't feel like a job. You know, like I have, you know, media things I need to do. Like I'm here at a certain time. And, you know, it's just, it is work. You know, it's like I have to come out here and practice in the heat of the day and, you know, prep for a tournament, because that's what I'm going to be facing in the tournament. So there's definitely, you know, little hurdles to go over, but I definitely enjoy it. I like my job.
Let's talk about course prep. Pickard Park seems to be a course that everyone is really loving this year, and the changes, again, no negative criticism so far from anybody. How are you feeling about your chances out here on this property?
Yeah, I mean, I feel good. There aren't too many changes. There's a couple that they're pretty nice. They might have tweaked some OBs in a little bit, but as a whole, I definitely like the changes. I think, I'm not sure what the course distance is, but I feel like it plays shorter than what we've been playing the past few weeks. So I feel like it's definitely more attackable for a larger portion of the field, which I think will make the scoring pretty exciting. So it should be a pretty fun event to play. I enjoy a lot of the shots here, some different shots that we don't really see on a lot of the other courses. So it's exciting to play out here.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that answer. Here's AJ Risley for a question as well.
Hi, Calvin.
Hi.
Okay, so you are the number 1 ranked disc golfer in the world. So that means that inherently you're going to be a lot different than all of our audience. That you are, significantly more skilled than the rest of the audience, the rest of the field. But you have something in common with the audience. You have a job. So this is your job. And I want to know, how do you feel about your boss? Who do you think is your boss in, day to day or week to week? Is it you, or your sponsors, or the audience? Who do you feel like you answer to the most?
I feel like as a whole, it's kind of a weird dynamic. I don't know. I guess I don't have like a direct boss. I mean, I definitely have, my sponsors, which I have obligations to. And then it's, what you do above and beyond that, that's kind of up to you. So I guess some of it may be the audience as well. You kind of feel like, you're out here for yourself, you're out here for your sponsors, and you're out here for, the people that make it possible, which is the audience. Because without them, like, there's no money in the sport, and then this wouldn't be my job. So it's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
But I guess, I don't know. I feel like I do have quite a bit of freedom to make a lot of my own choices while I'm out here on the road.
Right. And those choices, I mean, if you make a wrong decision with, your diet or your practice schedule, you're going to be the one to reprimand yourself. But when the audience is your boss, what kind of things do you think that they care about? What are the things that they care about? Is it like your style of dress, your style of play, do you have any thoughts?
I don't know exactly. I guess it would probably depend on you're talking about in the audience. But I would assume, they're out there absorbing disc golf content. So I would assume it's the quality of play and, just how you carry yourself. If it's about style, I can't say I put very much effort into that. So I
you
might
have
be
multiple
failing
signature jerseys.
I know.
You're very
I
stylistic
do.
human.
Yeah, but it's not something I think about too much. I get plenty of help over there on that front from other sponsors. So, yeah, I think it's kind of a whole thing. I mean, in the end, this is like it's an event and it's a show. So I guess it all comes together as one cohesive thing eventually, all those things included.
I like that perspective, and I like to think of it the same way myself. So thank you for sharing, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back. Last but not least, our tournament director, Ty Tannat. Ty, you are a workhorse, my friend. How are you feeling this week?
I'm feeling great, man. The course looks amazing. Shout out to all the volunteers and Doug Byland, the parks director, sitting over there chilling right now. We're feeling really good. We're feeling prepared. There's been a lot of hard work that's been put into this, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, both on the course here and back in the office at home, getting prepared. So looking forward to having the best players in the world and you guys out here and having a good time, having a party.
When the tournament ended last year, how soon did you start planning legitimately for this year?
Oh man, that's a good question. I actually think I might have taken a couple weeks off last year. The year before, the first year, was the next day. The next day, the city councilman had come out here and said, hey, I can get you into TrueBank's office and we can talk to the CEO. And sure enough, that happened, and TrueBank has been our sponsor since then. But, last year we took a couple weeks off. We had a volunteer party, relaxed, tried to kick back, and just enjoy what happened.
Talk about meeting with the CEO of a bank, talking about disc golf. How did that go?
Oh, it was awesome. So, yeah, Keith Welling, CEO of TrueBank, not familiar with disc golf at all, but great guy, amazing guy, loves his community, wants to support his community. That was the biggest thing. He saw the amount of people we brought out here, the excitement, this new sport, this new fun sport, and then obviously the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the highest level of disc golf with the Professional Disc Golf Association as well. So I said this the other day, I think, to Charlie, when I can get in a room with somebody and just like my passion explodes and they can relate to that immediately, because I'm not necessarily talking about disc golf in general. I'm just talking about my love for something, and I think they can relate to that because they probably have a similar passion, maybe in a different aspect or different avenue, and but we can connect on that, right? We both want our community to come out here and enjoy something and have that. Everyone experience that at one time, and then everybody go talk about it, right? And it's like going to a concert with your friends and you meet random people there and you're like, oh, I love this. So same thing with doing this, and ever since then they've been huge supporters, and can't wait to have them back out here this weekend.
Talk about the struggles putting an event like this on. I mean, again, you work full-time for the tour in a different capacity, not just directing this huge tournament. What have been the biggest operational struggles this year?
Yeah, I think people have potentially been hearing that there hasn't been a lot of changes to the course. Well, that's not true. I mean, there's been a lot of changes to the course. There's so many little things that take so much time. When you put in one new tee pad, that takes 8 hours, right? So I think the biggest struggle is just having enough time, getting enough volunteers, and enough manpower and resources to put in these small changes that make a big impact on the course. So along with that, my job at the Disc Golf Pro Tour has also allowed me to see how other events work and how they operate and what I need to do to make sure that we stay on the same level and near the top level of events. So that's actually been a benefit to me, and I'm happy that I get to work with those other events, and I think we can all bring each other up and continue to excel and succeed here in the Disc Golf Pro Tour.
Well, let's talk about your volunteers. I mean, I think they always do such a great job. Des Moines always seems to show up for disc golf, whether it's here or it's a B tier out at Walnut. Talk about what it takes to manage an army of people like this.
Oh man, you've probably, if the players out here, I'm sure have seen them, but Chad, Jamie, Earl, the Indianola crew as we call them, they've been out here weed whacking for the past 2 or 3 weeks, and that seems like a small thing, but again, that's 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day that they're volunteering their time. They're not getting paid to be out here to do that. Where when you're at a golf course, they have paid staff that is out there making the course look beautiful and manicured and all that stuff as well. So. These guys just love disc golf. They bleed disc golf, and I'm happy for them. They're going to have a great time out here, and they're going to get to see the best players in the world, and we're going to have some pops afterward and have a good time.
What can spectators who show up on site watching this in excitement, what can they expect out here?
I think you said the word excitement. There's a ton of holes that are gettable out here as far as both birdieing but also ace runs. I think we've expanded our GA zone on hole 4, so you can see holes 3, 4, and 5 from the GA zone. Those are pretty exciting. 7 and 8 are also very exciting holes. And then I think it takes a full game, and I think the best player with the most endurance is gonna last out here. It's very hot, it's humid, and we're probably going to be in for some wild weather as well. So it's going to take endurance to win out here. and may the best man and women win.
I have a question about that weather because we've had to deal with it so many times in the past. But I have one last question about the course. Let's talk about hole 3.
Yeah.
I mean, players last year were saying, yeah, it's a little rough around the edges, still needs time to work in. How do you feel like it's worked in over the past year?
I think it's great. I mean, I don't know if you've been over there, but we took out, I think, 11 or 12 trees. So when you're on the tee pad, it looks the same because you can't see the trees that were taken out. So it's still very daunting, but in my mind, there's a definitive gap there. It's about 25, 30 feet wide that can get you all the way to the basket. It's a really fun hole now. I'm glad we did what we did last year. You know, we didn't want to take too many trees out. I'm happy to get the feedback. That helps a lot, and I think we made it better. I think somebody aced it the other day, so you know, I'm looking forward to see it play out and see the score separation, because I think now we'll see a lot more 2s, but we'll still continue to see maybe some 4s and 5s.
Yeah, I think this is one of the more entertaining courses that we get to see all year, and actually, you know, this year especially, every player that I seem to talk to has rave reviews about this place. So kudos to you and the team that have worked on this course. I do have to ask about the weather, because it seems like every single year there is just a nightmarish weather scenario where a TD has to make a tough decision. Do you feel calloused at this point looking at the radar?
Yeah, well, if you look at my hair, so I tried to dye the hair, maybe mix it up a little bit. I'm a little superstitious, tried something new. We'll see if it works out, but at least our event team is prepared, you know, along with the Disc Golf Pro Tour staff. We're prepared for anything, so luckily we've been through it before. Obviously, we're hoping that doesn't happen. It is a ton of work when that does happen, and yeah, I guess I got my fingers crossed at the moment.
Well, I want to ask, because you always see every time a tournament gets canceled because of weather or a round gets postponed because of weather, so many people were saying, oh, well, it's not raining that bad. Oh, the weather didn't look so bad. This was a bad move. How strict are the weather guidelines on the tour in regards to cancellation or postponing a round compared to other sports?
That's a good question. I'm not necessarily in those conversations, so I don't know how we compare to other sports. Obviously, the Disc Golf Pro Tour is expanding at a rapid rate, and we're getting a lot more spectators, media, vendors, all these people out here, and we're doing the best to make sure everybody's safe. And Seth Munsey's leading the charge there, and I'm happy that he's doing that. And I mean, that's first and foremost the main thing we're trying to do. Is we have, I guess I don't know how many acres out here, probably 80 or 90 acres out here. We got people all over the course, and we want to make sure that they have enough time to evacuate and get out of here before something dangerous does happen. So we'll always take that over, you know, potential blue skies with the storm down the road. So, I mean, we're happy to be safe first, for sure.
I have one last question for you, and thank you for all these thoughtful answers.
Yeah.
What are you most excited for this weekend? And then what are you going to do right when the tournament's over?
Oh, man. You're going to make me choke up.
It's a lot of work, I understand.
Just everybody's... just hugging everybody, and you know, enjoying a smile, and you know, I hope to have my son out here and my wife, and we're actually we have to go through IVF to we're actually trying to have a second child, and she's actually doing a transplant on Sunday, so it's going to be a very emotional day, and I'm just looking forward to hugging everybody and having a good time.
Well, Ty, thank you so much, man. And there's TDs all over the country that probably share sentiment with you when they have to put all these hours on the line to run events when life is happening outside. So thank you, and let's just hope the weekend goes smooth and we can move on. But thank you so much, man.
No, thanks, Brian. I appreciate it, dude.
Have a good day.
Yeah.